It's back. If the defendant's son would have walked in with the defendant and pointed at that 9mm and said, "Hey, Dad, that's the one I want," would you have sold it to him?
No.
Okay. And in fact, in your store, there's information posted that says, "Don't buy for somebody else."
Correct.
That was the office manager of a gun store testifying about selling the gun used in the Oxford High School shooting to the shooter's father, James Crumbley.
And it's just part of what we heard today in day 2 of that testimony. CBS News Detroit's Andres Gutierrez joins us live from outside of the courthouse in Pontiac with more testimony on the case.
Terrence, the last witness of the day was the assistant principal at Oxford High School who described the moment she found one of the victims, Tate Meir. It was very heart-wrenching to hear. They also played security video of that moment, and so along with their testimony, it made at least one of the members of the jury cry. It also made James Crumbley cry as well. The day began with the defense cross-examining Ed Rogowski, the forensic analyst who pulled all of the data from the phones belonging to the Crumbley family. During her questioning, Mario Lehman did a deep dive into some of the exhibits that the prosecution introduced on Thursday, including some of the 20,000 text messages the shooter and his close friend exchanged, in which the shooter said he was struggling with his mental health. It was oh so emotional this morning when the Lee crime scene investigator said the shooter fired 32 times and showed the path where those bullets traveled. During his testimony, the prosecution showed some graphic photos that you didn't see at home, but we did in the courtroom. One of those photos was of a pool of blood in the bathroom where Justin Schilling died. The jury also got to see video from the interrogation room where investigators spoke with Crumbley's parents after their son committed mass murder. Take a look.
Why? I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Let's talk about what James Crumbley didn't tell you. He never told you that he bought the murder weapon 4 days ago, did he?
He did not.
He never said he bought the murder weapon 4 days ago as a gift for his son.
He did not.
He never told you the gun was ever locked up, did he?
He did not.
He never told you the counselor told James and Jennifer Crumbley to take their son home that day, did he?
No, he did not.
Okay. In fact, he referred to it as doodling on the paper, right?
Correct.
He never actually mentioned that he actually had another son, too.
No. That's correct.
In that portion of the video where he said, "I love you, I love you, I love you," what was his son doing at that time?
Trying to talk to his mom.
Okay, and his son was actually saying, "I did it" at that point.
He did.
So James was yelling, "I love you, I love you, I love you," louder, louder, and louder over his son.
Your Honor, I don't know what the implication is that the prosecution is trying to make, but I don't think that's even a proper question.
Counsel clearly tried to paint a picture that he was saying, "I love you" to his son, and the video depicts something else, so I would like some context.
Okay,
Your Honor, I think
whether or not he was trying to talk over his son is up to the jury to determine.
And now there at the top of the broadcast, you heard from the office manager from the gun store where James Crumbley bought the weapon that was used in the shooting. She testified that the gun was sold with a gun lock, but the prosecution has said that the lock was never used. Reporting live in Pontiac this evening, Andres Gutierrez, CBS News, Detroit.
So, Andres, this was a shorter day, kind of got off to a late start and then wrapped up early as well. Any idea why that happened?
Well, essentially, the prosecution had scheduled witnesses, and they ran out of the witnesses they had scheduled for today. So the judge had booked out 2 weeks for this trial, and she said to the jury today that they are well ahead of schedule, and they may begin deliberating by mid next week.
All right, we'll be following everything closely. Thank you, Andres. And joining us tonight in studio are attorneys Terry Johnson and Rick Convertino. Thank you for sticking with us throughout the day.
Thank you.
So a lot of focus today, as we just heard, on the purchasing of that weapon. What is the significance of that to the case?
I think it's very significant. The interesting thing is the defense attorney came out and said there's nothing that shows that he, being James Crumbley, purchased this firearm for his son. There's no paperwork, nothing along those lines. Even in the questioning that I just picked up here, it just dawned on me that we just heard in Andre's report, the question was, he never told you he bought this son for his gun, or I'm sorry, this gun for his son. No, he didn't. He didn't tell you purchased it 3 days ago. He never purchased it for his son. That's the significance of this. He purchased the firearm. It's kind of like a teenager. If dad buys a car, and the car's in dad's name, the insurance is in dad's name, dad pays for the gas, it's dad's car legally. So That's what I think is a big part of this whole thing with the firearm.
But if there's an agreement to let the son drive the car or use the gun, does that change things?
No, it's still Dad's gun. And the question becomes, Dad also talked about how the gun was hidden. That came out in testimony today. He hid the gun, he had the magazine separate, he had the ammunition separate. So it wasn't just easily accessible by by the shooter himself. So I think that was very significant in terms of what came out today.
Now, Rick, there have been a lot of people very frustrated with these parents specifically because they feel like they gave him the tools to carry out this massacre. What are your thoughts on the gun situation?
Well, the same as Terry's scenario regarding his father giving him a car. You give a car is a powerful tool. It can be a deadly weapon, as you know, and so it's equivalent. You give a kid a car. Let the kid drive the car. The kid is irresponsible, drives the car when the father or mother know that the child is either inebriated or has some kind of disability and kills several people with the car. Parents can be liable for the actions of their son or daughter who's in that car, even if they're underage. So it's a similar strategy that the prosecution is proposing in this case. It's the same type of scenario. The only difference is the dangerous weapon is a gun.
So we went into the day with some news. We ended last night, actually, with the news that James's communications in jail are being restricted due to some threats he apparently made over the phone or email. How can this affect his case, and what can we really make of that?
It's unclear what the threats were about, and I don't think it will affect his case, other than his ability to communicate with people other than his lawyer or clergy. That seems to be he's prevented from doing that now based upon these threats.
Is the jury privy to this information?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. And that's why I don't think it'll affect the case in any manner.
All right, another sticking point from today, the video from that interrogation room when the parents were first brought in, face-to-face with the shooter as well. The prosecution seemed to question whether or not James saying, "I love you" to his son was somehow him trying to cover up his son admitting to what he had done. You had some pretty strong feelings about that.
I just think it's an overreach by Mr. Keese at this point. I mean, listen, if you look at this, if the father didn't want the son to talk, shut up, son, don't say anything, wait till you get a lawyer. Saying "I love you," and again, if you look at that tape, the shooter's talking to his mother. "Yeah, I did it," and he's only said it after Mom. Why? He said, "Yeah, I did it." And then Dad said, "I love you," and he's pushing Mom out the door. "I love you, I love you." So he wasn't over-talking him, and I think it's a critical mistake that the prosecution made in this situation.
We've also heard about some of the emotions he had in the hours after the shooting, especially when you compare it to the reaction of Jennifer Crumbley, the shooter's mother. Is that humanizing him for the jury in any way?
I think it is, Shana. The mother was phlegmatic. She was seemingly detached, concerned about herself in the video. We saw that in the first trial, even through her testimony, very kind of stoic and affected in her testimony. He is emotional. He's shown that throughout the trial. He's also shown that in the statements he's made to the police and on the other videotapes that are going to be admitted. The one in the back of the patrol car, if you remember from the first trial. Mm-hmm. He was very concerned about his wife. He was very concerned about his child in that patrol car that I'm assuming he didn't even know he was being videotaped at that time. But he was very, very emotional.
Yeah, you're right, Rick. We've seen a lot of emotion out of him really throughout this entire thing. Do you think that could play a role in possibly seeing a different outcome as far as what he sees in the end versus what his wife Jennifer got?
I think it very well may. I think the jury wants to give the benefit of the doubt to a parent in a situation like this. It's a tough case. It's even tougher now that we have a very competent defense attorney. She's doing a good job poking holes in the case and showing where there's a chasm or two in the proofs. And so I think that you're going to have a very different trial and maybe a different outcome.
How does that usually play out with juries? Is it necessarily fair to sum up how someone reacts emotionally? I mean, everybody reacts differently. It's not necessarily an exact indication of what they're thinking or how they typically would act.
Right, and I think the standard is what would a reasonable person do under these situations? That's why we have juries that are made up of diverse folks from a cross-section of, in this case, Oakland County. We have men, we have women, some that own guns, some that don't, some that are parents, some that aren't, and they all get in a room and they have the question that you're just talking about. Was this reasonable? well, you might cry about something, I may not cry about it. Does that make my actions unreasonable? Those are the kinds of things they'll be discussing in that jury room.
And comparing this to Jennifer's trial, it seems like this process is a lot more expedited. Are you surprised by that at all?
No, I'm not. I think a lot of the reason I'm not surprised is the efficiencies of both sides. If the prosecution is efficient and the defense attorney is efficient, things move expeditiously. If one of the two is not, it's going to slow the whole process down. Getting witnesses in, getting exhibits introduced, objections, things along those lines. So I am not surprised that things are moving this fast thus far.
So the defense attorney is efficient. She's poking holes in arguments. What are some of the arguments that you think she really attacked the best?
Well, I'll give you an example of one that proposing to the jury to look at a piece of evidence in a different way. And that was the text messages. In the first trial, we were told about these text messages that concerned the horse, and that there were a multitude of text messages between James and his wife regarding the health of the horse. And the way it was postured in the first trial was that the parents of the shooter were so concerned with the horse, even at times when the son seemed to have been spiraling out of control emotionally and mentally, and that their focus was on a horse rather than their child. What the defense attorney did in this case was she took those text messages regarding the horse, that were 86 in total, and she took those from the time they first started all the way to the last ones. There were 333 days. She calculated out the percentage of the text messages regarding the horse compared to the amount of days and the other text messages between the two, and it turned out to be a fairly small percentage. Now that's something that, as a jury, you can sit there and say, yeah, you know what, I'm looking at this horse, these communications regarding the horse in a totally different light. Maybe it wasn't so unusual, maybe it was spread out over a period of time, and that can discredit the prosecutor's case. And things like the prosecutor maybe reaching, saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, was James' way of stultifying his son, shutting his son up. The prosecutor said in his objection that it was crescendoing, that it was getting louder and louder to target him and tell him to be quiet, when in fact it may not have been anything at all. And a juror may look at that and say, you know, this is overreaching, and that goes to the the credibility of the prosecutor, excuse me, of the prosecutor's case.
Now, in Jennifer's trial, again, comparing, there were a lot of moments where we thought, well, that's really not making her look good. Terry, you say we didn't see a lot of those moments for James.
Correct. I mean, if I look at this trial, it started off with a statement of her being mom, a vigilant mom. This defense attorney has not made any statements about the character of James Crumbley. She's only made comments about what did he know and things along those lines. Not he's a good dad, not he's a responsible dad, not a dad that made a mistake. Her opening, I believe, was about 6 minutes long, give or take. But within that 6 minutes, she focused on what he knew and what he was able to do. And that's what they're stuck with. His character at this point has not even come up, which is, I think, a plus for the defense.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see Monday is a start of the James Crumbley show. It's going to be focused more on him. And you recall in the Jennifer Crumbley case, they had the same witnesses in the same order, pretty much. And so what we're going to see, which is regarding the school shooting and the school itself and the emotional circumstances surrounding that, I think we're going to see more focus on James starting Monday and early next week.
I know you're generally not a proponent of putting the defendant up on the stand. Do you think we might see that again in this trial, though?
I don't think at this point in time, Shano, that we need to do that, or that would be needed. I think he's spoken through his statements that he's made to the police. I think there'll be more tapes, for instance, in the back of the police car that came in the first trial. So I don't think that that's going to be needed. He may want to testify, and I would expect that unless it's absolutely necessary to kind of explain some of the interstitial gaps here, but that's not necessary, I don't think, at this point in the trial.
And Terry, your thoughts on what we'll see moving forward into Monday?
I think this weekend the prosecutors are going to be doing a lot of work. I think they've given the playbook to the defense, so the defense knows exactly what the witnesses are going to be. They know what they're going to ask. If I were the prosecutor, I'd change some things up, and because in my opinion, what they've done so far just isn't working. So they need to change something, and what's coming up, I think you may see some attacks on Mr. Crumbley's character, but if they start to do that now, I think it's going to put them way behind the 8 ball, because if they haven't done it thus far with the jury, and the defense attorney hasn't put it out there, I think it's going to make them look desperate. So they've got some work and some decisions to think about over the weekend.
Yeah, it's the third time around on the presentation of the case, same witnesses, and we saw in some of the latter witnesses that they're just not as emotional or impactful as I think they were in the Miller hearing and in the previous trial.
But it's the first time that this jury has seen them.
Right.
So.
Well, court continues on Monday, and of course we will be following that gavel to gavel again. Terry Johnson, Rick Convertino, thanks for being here today.
Thanks very much.